Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out Returnal. I call this a quick rant because I've tried to do this video so many times and I need to do it quickly, otherwise my brain just decides to shut down on me. So here we go. First thing I like about Returnal is how quickly it loads in. You've got like 2 logo screens, 2 cutscenes you can skip, and then you're straight into the game. You don't have to pick a new game, you don't have to fiddle with any options, you're straight in. 10 to 15 seconds, maximum. This is Astrobot levels of loading, and it is really impressive that they've managed to pull this off. And it just streamlines the entire process of hopping straight into a game, and I wish more game developers would do this, but in the age of needing to have 12 logos before every game, connecting to online servers, connecting to matchmaking, and doing all of that other shit that we all hate, I don't think it's going to happen very much. So when that one game comes along that can utilize it, really appreciate it. And this whole streamlined thing works really well in Returnal's favor because Returnal is from Housemarque, people who do really good arcade games, arcade action games, I guess we'll call them. And the thing about that, they've made games like Resogun, Dead Nation, Nex Machina, Super Stardust, games that are just really quick to get in, really mechanically streamlined, and don't spend time jerking you around with pointless decisions. And all of those benefits have made their way to Returnal. Simple controls. There are some really easy to understand controls here. Move, look, shoot, aim down sight, jump, melee, scan the world to give you a better idea of it, grappling hook, a disposable item. That's it. That's all there is in the way of controls. It's really simple to handle, and it feels great while it's doing it too. You run at what feels like the speed of sound. Your dash is really satisfying and leaves you immune to all fire and all injury. In fact, you can dash right on top of a dangerous surface, and it won't hurt you if you time it exactly right. It's great. But you move really quick, you attack really quick, and you beat the shit out of enemies really quick. And it's on the same level of Doom Eternal, where you're constantly on the move, constantly firing off, constantly figuring out where you're going to go next. And it works really well. This formula has been proven to work, and it's proven to work here again too. But this is not only third person, which doesn't really make a difference, let's be honest. It's a roguelike, and in roguelikes you have to do specific things. You have to offer people upgrades, you have to offer people downgrades in exchange for upgrades, and you have to offer people different choices. But the thing is, all of the choices you can make have been slipstreamed into the game in such a way that it gets you back into the fight as fast as humanly possible, and I can't help but appreciate that. And this works in several ways, like having teleporters strewn about almost everywhere, so if you come to a dead end, it won't take you long to get to the next room. I'm talking about if you find a new weapon, it's really easy to decide whether or not you want it, because you've got very clear and very easy to understand abilities, stats, and just how good the weapon is in general, what kind of weapon it is, and you can only carry one weapon at a time, so it's usually very quick to decide whether or not you want this new weapon. Same thing with like items. Do I want this item? Usually you do, but sometimes you get things like parasites, which make you take a penalty in exchange for a buff, or malignancy, where items are locked behind the random chance to end up with a debuff that will go away once you've performed a specific set of actions. And things even like the adrenaline system, which makes you more powerful as you manage to defeat more enemies without taking damage. All of these things, all of these little design choices, all of these little things let you get back into the action as fast as humanly possible. And there are even little things that they've done to simplify it without requiring you to press something like, say, an extra button to activate your alt fire, because it's on your left trigger. You push it halfway down and it gives you a bit of resistance, but it lets you aim down your sight. Then you push it down all the way and it lets you fire off your special weapon. And it's really well done. The resistance is perfect, and I can count the amount of times I had trouble with it on one hand over the course of 4 hours. It works really well, even just in little areas like that. Or in the weapon proficiency, where it's like, oh, you don't have to worry about picking up a certain kind of elemental damage or a certain kind of special damage. It's just, your weapons will get better as you go along because that little meter in the bottom left is telling you how good they're going to be. And it just keeps circling back into the combat. That's the whole gist of it. And that all works. And as a result, the absolute majority of the gameplay that I've played so far in Returnal has been really sweet. High speed, high action, no bullshit, third-person shooter combat with some really interesting enemy designs, a little bit of bullet hell going on, and some really nice environments to do it in as well. Although, I admit that I'm getting a little bit sick of this whole jungle thing. I have managed to make it through to the second area, and it's completely different. It's like a flat desert with stone buildings around it. It feels completely different to these jungles with their nature aesthetic and what have you. It is really different, it's really impressive, and it looks really nice. And as I said, the game runs at mostly 60, but sometimes it just drops a little bit below 60. Hopefully they'll be able to polish it up just a little bit with a patch. The one problem I have with the way that the game designs its levels, though, is that the tiles tend to be a little bit repetitive, and they do things like hide the secret areas in exactly the same place every time. I'd like to see that tweaked a bit so that I don't know exactly where I need to go to find the secret area every time I stumble into one of these areas, but oh well. The storyline is kind of in the background, even 4 hours in. You get audio logs, and you get to visit the old lady's house to learn a little bit more about her backstory, but I just haven't been given the clues I need in order to actually really start figuring out what's going on yet. A little bit of a shame. I'd like it to be a little bit more upfront. And the technical performance outside of the performance itself can be a little bit shoddy. I've had it crash on me once. Not great, but what are you going to do, right? There's also a weird bug going on where if you remap what the circle button is, sometimes you won't be able to escape from certain dialogue or object prompts. So I actually swapped around R3 and circle so that I could move, aim, fire, and dash all at the same time without taking my fingers off the analog sticks. Works really well, except when those screens come up. But the worst bug that I've run into that almost made me quit the game entirely was going into the pre-order suits and finding that on occasion it would lock me into certain rooms and I wouldn't be able to continue to run. It just wouldn't let me out of the rooms for some reason. Why that's coded to do that on the costumes, I don't know. That seems like a really butt programming job, and I don't know what the hell would have caused that. With all that said though, if we're going to take away the hour or so I spent fucking around trying to figure out what the hell that bug was and eventually had to ask about it from a bloody Push Square article of all things, I really am enjoying Returnal. The action is great. It's so slipstreamed that getting you back into the action is just as smooth as it needs to be. The decisions do carry weight, but at the same time, I feel like I'm able to make them so quickly and get back into the fight without even trying. The action is really good. The weapons feel great. There's a ton of them if you count the individual ways they can be varied within the weapons, along with all the individual weapons. I wish the melee was a little bit better with its auto lock-on, but aiming and shooting with this is really satisfying, and notably there's actually an aim assist that works well enough without making me feel like I'm overpowered, and that is really good. Because it usually, like, one thing that really impressed me about this game, I never had to change the sensitivity on the analog stick. Never had to do that before, in the sense of not having to do it, but yeah. Great movement, great weapons, great gameplay loop where you're constantly being thrown right back in. Great loading times, mostly great performance. Wish the storyline was a little bit more into it. Wish there was a little bit more variance on the roguelike tiles because it makes the areas start to feel a little bit repetitive. And I wish there was a little bit more storyline up front. And I wish that the game wasn't as bloody buggy as it was when it came out. But I still really enjoy it. Not to $70 level of enjoy. Maybe if the bugs were gone, maybe I could agree to that. But I'd probably tell you to wait for it to go on sale for like $50 at least. Alright? Like, it's clearly got some game time behind it. Like, I've got 4 hours in it. 4 fair hours at the very least. And I've only just made it to the second world, and there's like 6. So there's plenty of content to go around here. It clearly looks and feels and plays great outside of the technical issues. I'm just saying, yeah, maybe not worth $70 in the current state. It's still pretty damn good though, and you shouldn't pass on it just because it came out at $70. You also shouldn't pass on it because the protagonist is a cis white woman, says the Kotaku lady who put out an article with a header that didn't have a cis white lady, had a customizable character, and had the star character of this game. It's like, why? You clearly don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, this has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.
ago. I can't tell if there was civil war, or genocide, or mass ritualistic suicide. Some of the bodies I find of myself have been wounded in a similar manner. I don't understand how that could be possible.